From WBBZ-TV Sports, it's time to beat the champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Well, hi, everybody. It's week 3 at the Tonawanda Bowling Center. My name is Paul Peck, with Hall of Fame bowler Sue Novoitsky and Janelle Sabin. We have started to get a feel and figure out a little bit about what Tonawanda is throwing at our bowlers so far. And we saw Kevin Volker master it for a while, and now Mike Zarcone seems to be the one who's got it figured out.
Oh, we can throw that all up in the air because that's not how it's going to go for sure. We've got some new bowlers, and it's going to be interesting because it's going to be a battle of wits, and are they ready to take on a person of Mike Zarcone's caliber, who has been challenged physically and mentally, and these lanes are going to continue to be a challenge. Yeah,
so Mike's coming in on 2 wins in a row, and his 3 challengers have not been on the show very much. Ryan Moreau and Jeremy Becker and Dan Streer. Streer and Becker have never been on our show before, so obviously we have our all-time winningest bowler against a couple of young guns that would like to knock him off, and they're all, Janelle, dealing with what has changed here at the TBC.
Yeah, as Sue mentioned, the lane conditions are definitely changing, and those are playing into a huge factor in the score, so it's a huge mental game, but I have to be on my toes to keep track of all the numbers up there.
Yes, you do. So it's the great Mike Zarcone on a 2-match winning streak. Can he keep that alive, or will one of these guys that we don't know all that much about start to give us reasons to learn more? Let's find out. It's Tonawanda Bowling Center. It's Beat the Champ. Let's get rolling. So here we go with our first match of the day. It is Mike Zarcone against that gentleman, Ryan Moreau, 39 years old, from Port Colborne, Ontario. The first ever Canadian to have been on Beat the Champ. That happened last year ago, here at Tonawanda, when Ryan came in and won 1 match and lost 1 match. So he will be making his 3rd show appearance, looking to up that 1 win with some more Tonawanda Bowling Center victories. Big, hard throwing left-hander. And the pins would agree with me on that one.
Yep, that was a great shot. What a way to come out of the gate. I mean, even though he doesn't have a lot of Beat the Champ experience, he's a very good bowler with very good credentials. He'll be a tough opponent.
And this seems to be the place that he likes to come to, and he likes to bowl here. Like we said, he attempted to qualify last year, made the show, and here he is back again. And there he is, Mike Zarcone, with a strike to open things up. 36th show appearance for Mike Zarcone, more than anybody else. 36 wins, more than anybody else. 23 losses, more than anybody else as well, too. And he's coming in on a 2-match winning streak, having knocked off the red-hot Kevin Volker, and then coming up with a win over Ryan Kress on last week's show. And it just occurred to me that in typical Zarcone fashion, 226, 215, Mike's never much below that, never much, sometimes above that, but just plays it smart as always, doesn't make any mistakes, lets his opponent make the mistakes, and in this case, Volker and Kress both had some rough frames, and then Mike's just there being consistent, knocking down pins, making spares, and winding up with a 225 and winning again.
You know, well, we'll talk about Mike when he's up next. Watch Ryan throw around a few pins because he has a lot of power.
Yes, he does. That was about 17.5 miles an hour down the lanes. I mentioned 39 years old for Ryan Moreau, as you see Janelle Sabin in the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. Been bowling for 30 of those 39 years, 230 average at the moment. And as we mentioned, from across the border in Port Colborne, not all that far away, depending on the bridge traffic.
I wonder if he does the 5-pin too.
That's a good question.
Nice shot.
Right now he's doing a 10-pin pretty consistently. 3 frames and 3 strikes for our north of the border contestant.
So one thing I've noticed about Mike over the last couple seasons is that he had a rough patch there where he wasn't winning a lot.
Last year, I believe.
And he was very frustrated, you know, and you can see his frustration on the lanes, and I don't see that anymore. And I guess, yeah, he's been winning, but, you know, like you said, he's leading in losses. He's lost his fair share, but he's really been less down on himself, less getting down on it, and it's really paid off for him. I think it's part of the reason why he's been more successful.
I would have to think that's just a confidence thing. I mean, he's Mike Zarcone, you know, and this doesn't mean to come across as egotistical, but he knows that. He knows how good he is. He knows he's a Hall of Fame bowler. He knows he's one of the best all time in Western New York, and he for that reason, he shouldn't get too down on himself. He should. I mean, you're going to have good matches. You're going to have bad ones, and things are going to go your way. But all in all, things go his way more than almost anybody else in this town.
Well, he's got a strange role. That's a tough break right there.
That did not go his way.
No, he's got a. It's almost like a trick roll, and it's always been a very good carry. And so he's had a history of just being able to carry a lot, and when you don't. When that starts to go away, it's hard. You gotta adjust. So for him, when he has days where he doesn't carry, it's actually difficult.
Almost on the 6-7 spare pickup there.
That's a tough
Mike
one.
did exactly what he wanted to. He got that 6 to go flying. He just flew behind the 7. So that's an open, which is pretty rare for Mike in the 4th frame, as you can see on the Castellone scoreboard. And that puts him in an even bigger hole now, down 76 points very early to Ryan Moreau, who's got 3 strikes in 3 frames. I want to ask you something to follow up on what you just said in a moment. Let's see how Ryan does if he can keep that streak alive. There you go. Boy,
Wow.
He is blowing some pins up.
He is.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
Mike starts with 2 strikes, then goes spare, open, spare, spare as he's fishing around a little bit here. Ryan starts 4 strikes, then goes open, and now we see how he bounces back here in the 6th frame. He beat Dana Vojtovic the last time he was here a year ago at Tonawanda, then lost to Josh Nowak, who wound up winning a bunch in a row right after that was started by that win over Ryan Moreau. So Ryan comes right back with a very big strike.
Yeah.
Now, to the topic that we're talking about, how much can perceived or implied anger and or hatred of your opponent sometimes fuel that ego part of it?
I think it's the same. I think it's the same way. It can be to your detriment, and it can be to your advantage, depending on how you channel that same emotion.
Now Ryan Moreau could get himself so worked up to test himself against one of the greats in this game in Mike Zarcone that it could affect him, or it could drive him to bowl better than he normally does because he knows that there's very little margin for error. And on the flip side, Mike Zarcone might be more fired up to bowl in the Obenauer Masters final against Jack Jurek than maybe he is in a random beat the champ matchup against a guy from Canada and Ryan Moreau.
I really think they're just trying to bowl their own game and win. I don't know that they put a whole lot of stock in the opponents. Because if they shoot 300, nobody's beating them. If they shoot 160, they're going to get beat. So, I don't know, at this level, I don't think you think too much about your opponent. Now, I would have been thinking, right or wrong, I would be thinking about the left-hander, right-hander thing, and I would probably give it too much thought, being that there was no play on the left and, all the play that had been on the right. And, Mike just systematically went out there and did his job and let Ryan sink or swim on the left side, so the best you can do is just worry about yourself. And I think they'll all tell you that.
Right. 2 of the last 3 frames, Mike has struggled to get those left side corner pins down. He left a 4, now he leaves a 4 to 7. Why is that? What is happening to Mike's game that seems to be a bit of a question right now in what is a very, very tight match between Ryan Moreau and Mike Zarcone?
How much the lane is hooking. Lane 39 has been hooking more all along, and there's only so far you can go before you're kind of changing balls, changing zones, whatever. And because of that right to left thing that he does, it's just biting up early for him. And And this guy's got a great
That's
shot.
3 in a row. So just to recap where Ryan Moreau is at, 4 strikes to open frame, 3 strikes since then.
The open frame was just a bad shot.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a lot of room out there. I mean, I've watched him get it almost all the way out, up to 5, you know, even a little bit left of that, and he's got it in, and it still hits the pocket. So you love to see that as a bowler because your margin for error just got a lot bigger.
And the 7 falls for yet another strike for Ryan Moreau. So now, really putting the pressure on Mike Zarcone to finish out here because Moreau's built himself a nice little lead. And Mike, if anybody knows how to come back and bounce back, it's Mike Zarcone.
I think it's too far gone at this point. You're looking at...
It's a 40-pin difference at the moment.
Yeah, that's... I don't know.
Too many strikes by Ryan Moreau might just be too much for Mike to play catch-up on. And that, again, that tricky left side, that 4-pin, I'm sure Mike will say has been the bane of his existence here today.
Well, that is officially, he's officially done.
So somewhat of a surprise, not because Ryan Moreau's not a great bowler, but because we know how good Mike Zarcone is, and we thought maybe this was the start of a little winning streak, but it's not going to happen. It's going to be 2 wins in a row for Zarcone, impressively, but even more impressive, our north of the border bowler Ryan Moreau is going to cross the Peace Bridge and send Mike Zarcone home. So that's a little bit of a surprise, but that 195 on the board for Mike Zarcone not going to be enough. So let's watch and see if Ryan Moreau can finish this out with a whole bunch more strikes. And he leaves the 7 pin, so it won't end quite as strong and impressively, but still going to be enough for a win. Boy, I'm thinking for a second there, that might be our second match of all strikes in one non-strike frame. You know, we saw one from Kevin Volker on a 279, and
he'll take his 240 and move on.
yes, he will.
Oh.
And that will not count because that hit the gutter first. So it's going to be a win for Ryan Moreau, a victory at 224 to 195 over Mike Zarcone. We'll talk to Mike, find out what he thinks about the lanes and the way Ryan Moreau is bowling. We'll get you ready for match number 2. Sue and I and Janelle are back to the Tonawanda Bowling Center right after this. Final score winds up being 232 to 195, an impressive performance by Ryan Moreau. You seem to have a little trouble on the left side, getting that 4-pin killed you a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, that left lane was hooking a lot. I just couldn't move left fast enough. It got me.
Right. Give me a little sense on what you saw from Ryan. He's a big, hard, strong thrower, a lot of strikes.
Great bowler. Throws the ball real good. Obviously, the left side wasn't touched that much, so he had a really good look. Great bowl.
All right, well, always good to see Mike. Mike had a couple of nice, impressive wins. Mike's going to stick around and help us out a little bit on the next match. We've got Moreau against Streer. That is coming up next on Beat the Champ. Here's our next match. It'll be Ryan Moreau challenged by Dan Streer, making his Beat the Champ debut. And based on the way Ryan bowled in that 232 to 195 win over Mike Zarcone, going to be a challenge for Dan. Ryan seems to have got a pretty good groove growing through a lot of strikes. 8 of them in that match before. So here we go, match number 2. Canada's Ryan Moreau gets us started with a spare opportunity.
Now he's using a urethane ball, and that might be one of the only things that could stand in his way. There's maybe a corner pin here or there, but it's also evening that lane out for him and not overreacting.
Here's the spare chance, successful for Ryan Moreau, which gives us our first look at 22-year-old Dan Streer from East Aurora. Works for National Fuels. His full-time occupation has been bowling since he was 4 years old and has compiled a nice .225 average. Bowls a couple of nights a week around Western New York. And not the way that he was hoping to start it off. Speaking of not the place you want to be, Mike Zarcone never wants to be sitting here next to us because that means things did not go so well in your last match. But we always like to catch up with Mike and find out. We've got a couple things to catch up with Mike about. But Mike, at least start off by talking about what you sort of saw and from Ryan and what you kind of learned about where things are at here at the old TBC.
Well, that left lane is definitely getting very, very tricky. Dan's going to have a little trouble with that left lane, but hopefully he can figure it out. And but Ryan's been bowling real good. He's got a good reaction, so it'll be interesting.
Left lane's been tricky since the first match of the day, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't take very long for 39 to start to be the one that was going to push everybody.
That was
and
a
then
great
you
shot.
finally get to the pocket and throw a great shot and leave an 8-pin. Welcome to bowling.
Yeah, so a little bit of a rough start here for Dan with the open in the first frame, and now what was a great shot but won't result in a strike for him to have to pull that 8-pin down. You know, and again, the challenges, Mike, for a kid like Dan, making his first appearance on the show, getting used to everything that goes along with that, but now you're throwing at these rather worn down lanes, including 39 that was bad when it was fresh.
Tough situation.
It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you handle it? How do you try to make the best of it?
You just try to make the best shots you can and make the right adjustments, and hopefully it's right.
Does anything factor into your thinking when you qualify, say, first, second, or third, if you're not coming in as a champion, or you come in later in the show? Do you have bring different equipment or kind of have a different plan going in if you know that you're bowling later on in the show?
Well, usually when you're bowling later on, you know they're going to be hooking a little more, so which is fine with me. I like to move in a little bit, and so I usually bring the same stuff with me.
So a little late fall there on the 7-pin was good for Ryan to get his first strike of this match. So he slides over for frame 3 on lane 39 and knocks them all down again. Well, Mike, it's been typically summertime is a little quiet for you and the rest of the bowlers, but and we're a couple of weeks removed from it. But Sue and I talked a little bit on last week's show about the Obenauer Masters and how it came down to you versus Jack Jurek in a battle of titans there, and it sounds like, while you would have loved to have won it and gotten your second one, you were pretty proud of what you were able to do and satisfied about the way it turned out.
Absolutely. I was thrilled to have gone as far as I did with the start that I had. You know, with losing that first match, it's a grueling tournament. I had to bowl every squad to rip off.
You lost early?
Yeah, I lost my first match to Bill Truman.
Oh.
And then then I ran nine matches in a row to get to the final match.
Okay, so because it's double elimination tournament.
Yep.
If you lose early, you are bowling and bowling and bowling.
Bowl for your life,
match,
right?
Every shift of every day.
And that is, every shift in that tournament is work. You don't get a free pass through any game. You have to think and move and adjust all the time.
Absolutely.
So not only are you sort of fighting the uphill climb in the tournament, but you fight it enough to get yourself to the point of making the finals. And there is one of the greats in this town, one of the most respected guys. I know you and Jack have a good relationship and really have high opinions of each other. So what's your thinking going into the finals, knowing I got to beat Jack Jurek?
Yep, I had to beat him twice.
Right, that's right.
So that's a tough task in itself, just to beat him once, let alone to beat him twice. But
it did go to the second.
No, No, the first match I lost by 2 pins.
You would
Yeah, I needed to throw 2 strikes in the 10th to beat him to go on to the second match.
Right.
I got the first one, and then I 4-pinned on the second shot. So Jack ended up beating me by 2 pins.
Wow, and he was well rested because he bowled half of what you bowled.
Exactly.
So, nonetheless, I don't think anybody who follows bowling would think any less of a second-place finish at the Open Hour Masters, particularly to a guy like Jack. So where do you sort of, as you assess looking back on that, how do you view it?
It's kind of funny. As much as Jack and I have bowled that tournament, we have never faced each other before.
Really?
So that was the first time that we, bowled each other. So it was I had a blast. I had a blast.
Well, it worked out nicely for his mom being there and all
absolutely.
that. And it was, I'm sure all around it was a great day, and it was a great week for you for sure.
Absolutely.
So Jack becomes the oldest to ever win the Open Hour Masters, and maybe you have a chance to break that record at some point down the road here too, right?
Yeah, hopefully we'll get a few more opportunities.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ. When that team concept was all there was, and being part of those great teams was how you got recognized and how you came to be. So it's funny, I didn't even realize that really the sport started with that team concept, because that was the showcase of bowling at the time.
Right, back then there wasn't the singles competition like there is today.
Right. And it's a different mindset for team bowling for sure.
I'll say Dan Streer finally got his first strike. He had been struggling a little bit. He finally gets his first strike. Ryan Moreau now on his 4th strike, and Ryan continues to bowl very well here and taking advantage of a little bit of maybe the jitters and the nerves that Dan may be going through. Mike, during your match, Sue and I kind of we're talking a little bit about, what's the right level of ego to have to be a great bowler, and how much does that fuel a great bowler? How much do you sometimes add to that based on who you're bowling against? I'd love your perspective on how often do you walk out there and maybe you don't say it overtly, but subtly you're thinking, I'm Mike Zarcone. I will win this. I should win this. I don't know who you are, but I'm Mike Zarcone.
Well, obviously you go in every match thinking, I'm here. I have to win. You go in, you want to win the match. But I don't take any opponent lightly. I just go in, I do what I need to do to win, and hopefully that's what happens.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about the opponent, or thinking I need to do, because I know how good this guy is, I need to do this, or can you ever let that creep into your mind?
Not at all. I just try to do my thing. Sometimes I even don't watch the opponents, and I just try to focus on what I need to do to strike as much as I can.
Who's the bowler that we've had rather prominently on the show who never even looks at it? You know who I'm thinking of, Sue? I'll think of it. There's one of our notable bowlers that we've had on the show, and you guys will all know the name once I can think of it, who a lot of times won't even look. He'll turn away. He'll look back at the crowd when the other guy is bowling. Is that a little bit of I don't even want to know what this guy's doing?
Some people are like that. Some people don't want to see, because you don't want to let a lucky break of influence.
Yeah, right. Because that bothers a lot of guys.
It does bother a lot of people, but I still see that you can catch nuances that are occurring on the lanes by watching other people's ball reactions. So I wouldn't be one to necessarily turn away unless maybe it was the 10th frame of a final game or something like that. But a lot of what you see happen on the lane comes from reading other people's ball reaction just as much as your own. So.
Like what I'll tend to do is, like, if I was on the next match here, they're coming down to their last couple frames, I'll come down and see like where Dan's break point is or where he's playing, and so I got kind of an idea.
It's funny because we were talking about ego. The two people with the least amount of ego that I've ever bowled with are Jack and Liz, and let their records stand on their own. They're just talk about going out there and just taking care of business. I mean, I guess that's what they both do. They just bowl their own game. Jack's, if anything can fry Jack, it's going to be Jack. It's not going to be the opponent.
Exactly. Right.
And Liz is pretty unflappable. I mean, not much can bother her.
Right. And I know Jack, he tends not to watch his opponents bowl.
He does.
I noticed during our match that he never watched a single ball I threw.
couple of opens for Dan Streer, including the one that you just saw in the 8th frame, has made this a bit of a challenge for him. And Ryan Moreau is starting to build himself a little bit of a solid lead here heading down the stretch. And more strikes like that certainly help. And Moreau looks like he's on his way to a 2nd consecutive victory here. And he's really one of the first guys we've had so far this month, Sue, that's really kind of a power guy, that's blowing it down the lanes.
Yeah, that is true.
Not that Kevin Volker wasn't at times like that, but...
No, there's definitely a difference in rev rate, and yeah, this is our first...
Power player,
yeah. Have you seen him in tournaments?
I have not. This is the first I've seen of him.
Yeah, I mean, that one that he just threw for a strike almost 18 miles per hour down the lane. So that's going to clinch it. That one's going to be enough to send Ryan Moreau to his 2nd victory in a row. And he'll try to finish out the week here against another bowler making their Beat the Champ debut, and that's Jeremy Becker. We'll have him coming up in a moment. Hey, it's always good to catch up with you. Always good to see you on the show. Pretty sure that you'll be back trying to make it next week at Alley Brandt in a couple of weeks. And, you know, and again, now that you've moved into the top spot in wins on Beat the Champ, which I'm sure you've already texted Chuck Jagosinski to let him know that, Chuck will now find the inspiration to come back and steal that from you again. So it's always good to have Mike on here. He has been one of the most dominant bowlers that we have gotten a chance to learn and see on a regular basis. We thank Mike for being on the show. Ryan Moreau with the victory. We'll wrap that one up and get 236 to 181, the final score as Ryan Moreau comes up with the victory over Dan Streer. First time on the show, I know can always be tough for guys, and then things don't go your way in the very first frame. How do you fight your way through it?
I mean, like as bowlers, we've all seen it before. Like stuff doesn't go your way. You just got to keep putting balls in the pocket and keep trying to strike and get your way back into it.
We didn't get a chance to mention it during the match, but tell everybody that incredible run of strikes that you pulled off in order just to get to the point where you are now.
Yeah, in the in qualifying, I needed all of them, like from the 2nd frame on the last game to get to the top 24, and we got there and we snuck in as like the 23rd seed and
that's okay.
Made it to the show.
Yeah, 11 straight strikes gets him into the 24 roll-off, gets him onto the show. Hopefully we see a lot more of you coming up, Dan.
Oh yeah, of course, I'll be back.
All right, Dan Streer's debut here on Beat the Champ. We got one more match. Can Ryan Moreau keep it going? Stick around. We're back right after this. So the incredibly consistent Ryan Moreau will try to stay consistent and get himself another win for a sweep of the week. His challenger is Jeremy Becker. We'll see Jeremy in a moment, but it's Ryan that will start things off. You did the math on Ryan's first 2 matches, didn't you?
Yeah, Ryan's averaging 234 and his opponent is averaging 188.
Yeah, that's once again, there's no defense in bowling, but that's a pretty easy way to give yourself a nice cushion.
Right, the common denominator is his opponents were both right-handed, and now he's contending against a fellow lefty. So.
Well, and as long as Ryan keeps knocking a lot of pins down, he's had a lot of strikes in those first 2 matches. He's going to keep winning. Here's our first look at Jeremy Becker. He is making his debut here on Beat the Champ. 20 years old, from Jamestown, New York. Works part-time at the Jamestown Bowling Company. We did not see him bowling last month when we were there, but he was up here.
He must have been working and caught the bug.
He must have been working. So the first roll for Jeremy Becker is a strike. Nice way to get that going. Also works part-time as a freelance broadcaster and producer for Western New York Athletics, outstanding high school sports website here in the Buffalo area that covers all the high school sports, including bowling as well, too. So Jeremy, an inspiring broadcaster. Just save a seat for him here. One day he may be handling these duties. In the meantime, he is bowling and he gets off to a good start rather. He's from, as we mentioned, Jamestown, New York, and has been bowling for about 13 years. And the lefty on lane 39. Oh. Welcome to lane 39, Mr.
Right.
Youngster. And there you go. Lots of pins still standing up there on lane 39. That is not unusual.
Well, since urethane has come back on the scene, it's been a real game changer, because these high rev rates, like we talked about Ryan having a high rev rate, sometimes as the lanes break down, or it's hard to control that high rev rate. So urethane has made a comeback because it tames the lane down for them. So if you miss in, ball doesn't do much of anything because it doesn't have that high performance core and high performance surface that the new technology balls have, which is Ryan's trick. He is using a urethane ball. He can throw it, he can wind it up as much as he wants to, and it's not going to overreact on him. And that's the difference between why the two left-handers are making the lanes look so different, and it's really based on what ball is in their hand.
Yeah, 18 miles per hour for that one from Ryan. And it's interesting you used the phrase tames the lane down. We talk so much about the power bowlers and the two-handers and the rev rates, and I'm rattling off speeds for you here. And in a lot of ways, what you're saying is the ball actually slows itself down to respond better.
Well, the lane is exaggerating the ball reaction right now. So what that urethane ball does is keep that ball from overreacting. Like Mike came up and said how much lane 39 is hooking. Urethane would tame that down. What you give up a little bit is hit, but these guys have so much hand. So some of the guys with a little less hand can't really go to the urethane because they're just going to plaque 10 pins all day. You know, leave that soft 10 or even an 8-10. But guys with these hands, it's only an advantage to have the urethane at their disposal.
Yeah, that one, all of a sudden a little bit of a struggle here for Ryan, and that includes leaving the little split as he has done right here.
Now that's just the result of, that's not, 4 nines are not necessarily bad. It's just the result of it coming up a little high in the back end. And it's just an unfortunate leave on not that bad of a shot.
Let's see what Ryan can do with that. Oh, nicely done.
If you hit it right, that one slides over pretty nicely.
So what looked like a little bit of trouble just turns into another spare. So strike, spare for Ryan Moreau, and Jeremy Becker, who struck in his first and then went open in the second, will now have to balance his way back from that. 210 overall average for Jeremy Becker. Bowls Thursday nights at the Jamestown Bowling Company. Bowls Tuesdays in Frewsburg. The 7-pin will hold up on him.
Yeah, he's got a really nice game. If you look at his, if you look at his approach and you look at him fundamentally, he's got a really straight backswing. He gets through the ball really beautifully, very straight follow through. Very nice game. Like I said, in this case, it's just going to be the lane breaking down and how you make up for that. And we talked about physical versus mental. Physically, you have to figure out how to control this lane, and I think Ryan's got that. And that's part of the mental thing, is actually figuring out you need to do that.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot. It's the challenge as we get down to the stretch here. Third show, 9th match on these lanes, and and I guess to some degree, if you're going to be the 9th and final qualifier, you should have more challenges. And the challenges are that you're bowling on not the best conditioned lanes.
Maybe you're one of the later qualifiers. You think about bringing a urethane ball and having it at your disposal, because they still have better hook potential than, say, your plastic ball, your ball that you might use for a spare. So if you run out of room, you should probably have a urethane ball in your arsenal to go to.
But the flip side of it is when you're the 9th qualifier and you're in the final match of the third week, then all you got to do is win this one, and you get to advance to the next bowling center where your first match will come on the perfect conditions laid out at that bowling center.
Right.
So one of these two guys is going to be that guy. Will it be Ryan Moreau that starts us off in 2 weeks at Alley Brandt Lanes, or will it be Jeremy Becker against a whole group of 9 other qualifiers? And I believe we still got a little qualifying going on, do we?
Absolutely. This weekend is actually the final weekend for it. And tomorrow you'll have chances at 12, 2, and 4, and you make the top 24, and you get to roll off the same night. So it could be one trip to Lockport.
Never got that to hook enough to the right, did Ryan Moreau, and he leaves that cluster of 3 pins. Hope everybody's had a wonderful 4th of July extended weekend here. Hope everyone had fun with that, and hopefully the weather was cooperative for everyone. As we celebrate our nation's birthday.
Oh.
And is that the first Open we have seen from Ryan Moreau? It is. That's the first Open in 3 matches for Ryan Moreau.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
39 years old from Port Colborne, as we mentioned, full-time occupation as a mechanic over across the border. Has his wife here at Tonawanda Bowling Center cheering him on. Bowls 3 nights a week in men's leagues in Canada. 26 career perfect 300 games and a high 825 series. And it will not go down.
Back-to-back bad breaks.
Boy, it's either the 7 or the 6 or somewhere along the line, Ryan keeps getting stuck with one pin that just won't fall.
2 good hits there, 2 rough breaks. And I believe Ryan watches Beat the Champ on YouTube. I think that's how he got to know it and got to the idea to come out here to start qualifying in it. So it's kind of cool that you can.
And keep in mind, almost all of our matches after they air, shortly after they actually air here on WBBZ, are usually available on YouTube. And we've seen a lot of interesting traffic on people watching on YouTube from all over the world.
Right,
we've
other
seen
countries.
people from foreign countries that have been that have watched the YouTube broadcast. So that's great. I'll start working on saying strike and let's get rolling in other. I'm going to work on let's get rolling in other languages.
You do that.
Yeah, I'm going to work on that.
I have enough trouble with this language.
Well, that's true.
Big surprise turnaround here by Jeremy, though, looking like he didn't have it very figured out, and all of a sudden
3 in a row.
Not a bad shot.
Yeah, he's again he was able to shake off those jitters of that early Open and has kind of refocused himself on some really good bowling. And he's built himself a decent little lead right now.
21 pins.
Looking to finish off an 8th frame spare. And that, just a little miss there at a critical time in the match, you would hope does not come back to hurt him.
Well, that's going to be the great equalizer.
So now Ryan Moreau with a chance to kind of take control back with some strikes, which he hasn't had, only 2 of them in this match. And that one kind of split the middle and didn't have a lot of juice on it, so now he's got quite the split to try to pull off here.
Wow.
6-10-4, is that what we got here? 4-6-10?
Yeah. 6.
Oh!
It was the 6-7-10. It would be the 4 if it was a right-hander. It was the 6 on a left-hander. But what a...
Doesn't matter. That was a thing of beauty.
He needed every bit of that.
I think that was the very last half rotation of that one pin that was rolling over that took out the 7.
Well, that keeps his hopes alive in this match. Big conversion.
And that's how you follow up a good moment like that.
All right, now he's cut the lead to 12. With a strike up, he's done all he could do.
Yep, so now Jeremy will finish things out here at 9 and 10 and try to post enough of a score to win and move on to Lockport. Like he didn't have a far enough drive from Jamestown. We're trying to make him go a little farther next
But
month.
he's going to have to double somewhere to shut out Ryan.
There's one.
the
Big
one.
strike in the ninth. Jeremy eyes it up, wipes off that ball, thinks about it. You can see him thinking about it a little bit. Knows what he needs to do here in the 10th frame.
Needs a strike in 9 or a double. Wow.
There's the strike. That's 2 in a row, and one more will get him a win. In his debut, the 20-year-old from Jamestown, Jeremy Becker. Jimmy and the gang down there at Jamestown Bowling Company cheering on. Going to be pretty proud of their young man here if he can pull off this win.
Okay, so he needs 9 spare. Anything less, and he still cannot shut out Ryan. It's got to be 9 spare or a strike.
Well, there's the 9. And let's see if he can get the spare on his final roll of the match. Well, this turned into a good one.
It did turn into
a really good one.
Well, no matter what, he can't lose because the best that Ryan could do is come up and tie.
Yeah,
So
we
he
haven't had a
can't-
tie in a while, so let's see what happens here. So Jeremy needs this to put himself in that position, spare, and he missed it.
What?
And he missed it
We
for
have
a 199. So,
We have the
10th
possibility
frame,
of a
Ryan
tie.
Moreau.
But he needs a ball. He needs every pin.
Well, you can feel the tension here.
No.
And it's not going to happen. Needed a strike there and a couple of more. So instead, it's going to be a win in his debut for Jeremy Becker. And what a terrific match. Boy, there were some ups and downs in that one. He had the early open, but he comes back and starts hitting some strikes. And one of those youngsters making their Beat the Champ debuts comes up with a victory. Jeremy Becker with the win over Ryan Moreau. We'll talk to both guys when we return to the Tonawanda Bowling Center right after this. $199 to $178. Jeremy Becker with the win over Ryan Moreau. Ryan, those first 2 matches, everything seemed to be pretty easy for you. It stopped being easy a little bit, didn't it?
The shot changed a little bit, and I just couldn't make the adjustment in time, and I made some bad shots off my hands. So he made the strikes and spares when he needed to. So
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
The lane's getting pretty beat up at this point too. Is that part of the challenge?
I'm throwing urethane, so carries a little up and down with it depending on what the shot is. And as soon as the shot starts to change, my carry goes, and I try to adjust, but.
All right, are we going to see you anywhere other than Tonawanda on this show? Are we going to get you somewhere else?
This place is just close to where I live.
Oh,
so.
okay, I got it. I got it. It works out that way, right? Well, speaking of not close to where he lives, Jeremy not only is not close to here, he's less close to Lockport.
I know you're going to have a long drive to go back to Lockport, but I'm sure you're happy that you're going.
Oh, I'm very happy to be going to Lockport next month.
And through the match, I noticed that, all of a sudden you turned it right on. Did you make a move, or did something happen that all of a sudden you started striking like that?
Yeah, on 39, I noticed I was hooking a little more, and I know I have a urethane bowling ball. So I moved my feet left 2 boards, and I slowed down my speed so it could read the pocket. Well, the ball could actually read properly and right through the pins. For a urethane, it actually did pretty good.
You absolutely did very good. So good thinking. We were talking about this being a mental sport, and you've just proved it right there. Nice bowling today.
Thank you very much.
Pretty good analysis over there, huh? He kind of broke everything down, didn't he? Well, guess what? He's going to have a little chance to analyze his game again, because we know we're going to see Jeremy in 2 weeks. Sue and I will come wrap up the first 3 weeks here, and another great day at Tonawanda. We're back with more Beat the Champ right after this. Well, sometimes we think we know what's going to happen. You might have thought, hey, Mike Zarcone, he's going to win. It didn't happen. Ryan Moreau, bowling great, knocking all the pins down, going up against the kid who's never been on the show before. You think he's going to win, and Jeremy Becker comes up and surprises us.
That's why we roll the balls, right?
You bet.
You never know what's going to happen, and in this case, it did turn out differently than we might have thought, but no nerves on that young man.
No, very impressive for a bowler making his debut, and you saw a little bit about how Dan Streer struggled, I think, with the debut part about it. Jeremy Becker just like, no, I'm here, I'll bowl.
Yeah, you can tell just by his little analysis there that he has extensive knowledge of what's going on, and, you know, he just did a great job. That was a tough match.
It was a tough match. Well, we had a fun 3 weeks here. We're not done here yet. We've got a fun show next week, but through the first 3 weeks, we saw some really cool stuff by maybe some bowlers that we didn't all know as well as we should.
Yeah, and now we got names to learn. I mean,
that's right.
We got to keep them up there and keep them coming back for more.
Yeah, guys like Volker and guys like Moreau and guys like Becker. These are all some of the new names of the next generation of Beat the Champ stars. Whose names are we going to add to that list? Well, we'll find out. We're headed to Lockport to continue the competition in 2 weeks, but join us next week when we're going to have a child-adult showdown. Have a little fun here at the Tonawanda Bowling Center. So make sure you're with us for that show. That'll be next week. For Sue and Janelle and the whole gang here at WBBZ, thanks for watching Beat the Champ.